at Utah State Park System. But when I was working on my PhD, my work concerned the very fascinating topic of the technological ingenuities of the Northwestern Shoshone and various associated bands of Shoshone, and particularly in the realms of communication, transportation, and food preparation. And you know, the Shoshone so ideally adapted their technologies to where we live, unlike us folks and the civilizations we brought. They have these wonderful drying food techniques in these wonderful baskets. That was light, that was portable. And what did we folks that came wanted to do but can things in breakable glass jars in heavy equipment in a water-poor countryside. So it's just one of the ways in which I thought that actually their food preparation techniques were superior to the people who came here and were actually acting out of a different environmental reality than what they were faced with here. But let me see if I can bounce this up. California volunteers, and this was just on the eve of the treaties as Scott mentioned. And so Dodie sends up the word, you know, let this guy go. I'm very hopeful that we can sign this treaty, and please no harm should come to this guy. But then, even though he was supposedly under heavy guard, he was shot. And they call that a fiendish act, shot by some fiend. And then he was taken to Brigham City the next morning, where every possible attention was extended to him because he had suffered this more than savage act. So I thought, 8 months later, after we nearly, folks nearly wiped these people out, now we're extending, please don't harm this guy, and oh, this is such a fiendish act that he was shot. What a turnaround. I mean, to me, do you agree that this is to me pretty astounding just eight months later? We jump to Logan. They're celebrating their 40th anniversary of their existence, and they talk about how hard it was for them in the beginning, wresting that land away from folks who'd been there before them, and they'd had to, they talk about the depredations they'd had to suffer, and until the battle on the Bear River, and then that kept the people down after that, and there was no more trouble. But again, the tag back in the popular culture to this event 40 years later. And we jump ahead to pretty close, 1904, and the Iron County record. And also many times in these, Scott went ahead and read out all of it, but you will find the verbiage in here disturbing. I hate all of the verbiage in there, the squaw, the papoose, the brave, all that crud that people standardly said, and those are rife within these articles. But anyway, this was in the Iron County record, how Colonel Connor killed the snakes, again, a misnomer. But this is such a mixed bag of tricks. It talks about, it's rather even-handed for a paper of the time, saying, there were depredations. They don't vilify them and call them devils or anything, but they may have said savages one place in here. But it says they were being unruly, particularly unruly, and uncharacteristically so in 1863. And then it talks about Connor's March, and then it says that it was rather an even-handed battle at the very beginning because Connor got there before the infantry, so people were cut down then. And then it says they mounted howitzers on the backs of mules and horses and shot the people. And then from then on, and then all heck broke loose, and there was just no coming back from that. And it talks about how the savagery of the troops in the way they dealt with the women and children, and then the burning of the lodges, and then the food supplies, and so on and so forth. So this is giving kind of both sides of an account, and I found that very interesting too in 1904. Rather measured for the time. And we jump ahead to a Deseret News article in 1908, and this was at the State Fair, and Scott also alluded to this, but if you read back at any time with association with the Shoshone folks, they're always in a parade. They're always mentioned that they're at Peach Days parade, or they're in the Logan parade, or they're in the Ogden parade, or they're down in the Salt Lake parade. Those were parade-loving people. Or I mean, everybody wanted them to be in their parades, which was very ironic. And then this was happening to be at the state fair, and these people are living there rather like a display and performing, but people, it always interested me because it was like they were an exhibit, and then people would ask them questions, and every time you got a quote back from a Northwestern Shoshone folk, or a Shoshone person from Fort Hall or whatever, it interested me in how plainly and true to the heart they spoke back. I mean, the question could be very irreverent and stupid, but the person would say, well, you know, this guy talks about being descended from Arama, who was up more Fort Hall way, but that he was acquainted with many of the people that were involved with the massacre on Bear River, and, you know, talked about how hard it was for them since then. It's been a hard time, and we're disappearing, you know, supposedly. But as Patty pointed out, of course, not disappeared, but hard times. And that was, you know, these real, true, from the heart answers to any, to me, irreverent questions, culturally insensitive questions. And here's this is a 1915 Pioneer Day celebration parade, and down there under floats, you can see that. The 5th Ward float or somebody is going to have the Battle of Bear River as their float. That was what they were going to act out on their float, with the primary children and whoever, whatever. And then there was there was a Battle of Providence that was going to be acted out, and it's so surprising because it says that it's going to be acted out, the Battle of Bear River, with a band of Indians. They don't even identify, you know, it's just some random band of Indians that had been living there next to them. They should all know who they are, but they don't, they just call them a band of Indians. And then down farther, like the 7th Ward is going to actually portray Pocatello and Sandwich and a band of Indians, but they didn't actually have the people there, but as they were in 1860. So that was interesting to me. So anyway, again, the touchstone back to Bear River and this civic celebration.